You talked a lot about when you were learning music with your family and your grandmother and your mother, uh, grandfather and your mother. And that seems to be the roots of many, many bluegrass players, that it's been a family learning experience. So those situations would be comfortable, relaxed, and with a lot of caring going on. Do you think that has any influence on how earlier in the interview you said the band members and yourself did a lot of workshops, and at festivals you'd sit with the young players and transfer your knowledge and encouragement to them? Do you think the family experience has an influence on that, on how you people, your generation would go in to help the next generation of players?
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, I think that is uh, probably one of the, I'd say one of the biggest gifts that bluegrass music and folk music can give to people is that there's so much of the tradition that's still there. So when a lot of the families just kind of kept that same tradition going inside their families of being able to play the instruments, had the song lists, they had songs that we could choose from. Luckily, in bluegrass music, a lot of it's pretty simple chord changes. But as far as individual instruments, it has a lot to add into that particular music too. But yes, I think bluegrass music was a good start and a good roots for a lot of people, especially in the acoustic music. And then they can take that and form their own style, I guess you could say. But we all of us had great people to listen to as we were growing up and try to find those styles. I mean, in bluegrass music, of course, there was Roger Bush. Again, it's back to the original Gazettes and the Kentucky Colonels. So anybody who was a bass player at the time, which I wasn't at that time, uh, we had people like that to show us how to play and to bring in their styles. Tom Gray on bass. So there's a lot of different greats, I guess you could say, that we had the access to, mainly for the recordings, to albums. So I think everybody back in those days, if you was in bluegrass, you collected a lot of albums, and I'm sure you guys do too over there. I can see in the background you've got a lot of music in the background there. Yes. So yeah, I think the family unit had a lot to do with David Greer, who's big right now in the bluegrass music. Yes, a
Great fellow,
wonderful
Dick.
guitar player. Of course, his dad was a can't think of his name right now, but his father was big into the bluegrass music. So David, as a young child, would go around to the festivals following his father and uh, had that type of roots. I remember traveling with the Gazette, and there was a weekend where we picked up Bela Fleck. He was I think he was only like 13 years old at the time. And his mother let him go out with us for the weekend, stay with us for the weekend, and we took him back home. And I can imagine what that was like for him. But I remember Alan saying, "This guy's going to be great. I mean, this is one of the greats right here coming up." And of course, look, Bela Fleck is now. So there was a lot of young people like that I had the opportunity to meet. I was one of the young guys too, but I just took it for granted of what was going on in my life like that, of meeting these guys. Had no idea what the future held for us. But there's a lot of young ones that came in. A lot of them were influenced by the Gazette because that's who their people were.
Right.
And so I think family units had a lot to do with it. And trust. I think bluegrass music really has a lot of good people in it, I guess you could say. So there was a lot of trust in the music. So it was a thing that you could explore and feel safe doing.
Great, thank you. I understand you've been working or making music with your wife in recent years. What has that collaboration been like creatively, emotionally, and spiritually?
Well, my wife Laura, who I've been with now for fixed to be 50 years. She's always been a big supporter of my music. Uh, she's just been right there, my biggest fan, I guess you could say, and always never tried to tell me not to play. So it's always I've been blessed to have her in my life. When we found the ukulele, she was a big part of the writing the songs with me. She's a writer herself, and she we would get together and I'd throw the song at her, and we'd get together and toss them back and forth. and writing the songs. So so she played with me for a little while. We had a family band going. We had both my boys, my wife, and my granddaughter, and we had a little band going around. We called it uh, uh, Ukulele Daily. What was the other thing? What we call ourselves? Yeah,
Anderson's Good Medicine.
yeah, Anderson's Good Medicine. We meant as the family band. And so she was with me. She learned to play ukulele. She always wanted to play guitar. She just had a hard time getting into it, like a lot of people do. And you got to get past the fingers hurting. But when we discovered ukulele, she just went right for it. And now she's out playing little gigs on her own. Her and her sister, they do little gigs that they do without me. So it's kind of interesting, but we still play some together. But mainly I'm mainly playing with Terry now. But we had a family band going for a little while. It was a lot of fun. But a lot of the music that you have on the other two albums, the other two CDs that I sent you, a lot of those were written while we were still playing to get together a lot, and for that purpose of putting a what would you call it, legacy out there. These songs just kept rolling out of me for some reason with the ukulele, the way it's tuned or the way it just sounds. It was a lot different songwriting tool than it was with guitar. So somehow just these two CDs just kind of came out just all of a sudden, song after song. We sit up late at night in the evenings just writing songs. So it's a lot of fun. The ukulele is a wonderful songwriting tool for people.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay,
Yeah.
we've talked a lot about your voice for good reason. Among my favorite lead singers, Lester Flatt, Charlie Bora, Tony Rice, and yourself, I've always felt your singing carries that same unforced clarity and emotional presence. So here's now I'd like to end our conversation. Imagine you are fronting your very own dream bluegrass band. But this time, you are not playing the bass. You are just singing. In other words, you could be a Robert Plant in a bluegrass band. Okay, now who would you choose to surround you? Mandolin,
Oh,
banjo, fiddle, guitar, dobro. And for the bass, don't pick yourself. Okay, you are the
okay.
singer.
No. I wouldn't do that anyway. So many greats out there yet.
Yeah, think of it as your bluegrass supergroup, the kind of band where your voice gets to soar.
Uh, very interesting. We talking about musicians available now or musicians from the past? Who would you like to have? Anybody. Well, of course, first of all, it'd be Joe Carr.
Joe
You know,
Carr.
Joe Carr, he was my guru. You know, he's the one that helped me a lot of times in the singing. I'd be singing a song and we're trying to work up a song and he'd say, "Hey, you might want to do it this way," or "Hey, you got the wrong note here. Why don't you do it like this?" And he'd sing me the line, and it would work on it that way. So he was probably one of my biggest influences in my singing, because up until I met Joe,
And
we
Joe is on what? Mandolin or guitar?
oh goodness, he'd switch back and forth. Yeah, he would be both, but I guess I'd put him on a guitar.
Guitar, okay.
Guitar. I would put Roland White on mandolin,
Mandolin. Mhm.
mainly because I was so familiar with him, and he was the greatest I ever saw. I mean, talk about stories. Now, Roland had stories.
Okay.
Put him on mandolin, and mainly because he's a harmony singing. We had some pretty nice harmonies with Joe and Roland and myself. That was a lot of fun. So I'd have Roland in there, of course, always Alan on banjo. He would be on banjo, but Alan was also a great guitar player too. A lot of people don't realize that how a classical guitar player at that, a very accomplished classical guitar. So I'd put Alan back in there too, because all these guys could switch around instruments and make it a totally different sound from what they play, their style. Fiddle. Oh goodness, there's so many good fiddle players out there. I guess I'd have to go with I like Dave Ferguson a lot. He was one of the fiddle players with the Gazette, and he was a local guy. I knew him outside the Gazette, so I think I'd put him on fiddle. because he was so good and so technical, I guess you could say. He was very, very technical fiddle player. Let's see, dobro. Oh, goodness. I like Gene Wooten. Gene Wooten was one of I got the pleasure of knowing him in my later years with the Gazette. But boy, you talk about a bluegrass legend. Gene was. He was. He played with everybody in the Nashville scene and really, really good. So I'd put him in there. Plus, good singer, good guitar player. Seemed like all these guys could all play the guitar, and that's what kind of made it nice. You could depend on somebody to play guitar. So let's see what else we got there. Dobro with Gene. Bass player is hard. I'm not sure. I don't know which bass players to put in there. Of course, you got
Bush.
Roger. Oh yeah, Roger is probably the number one. As far as bluegrass goes and all, because Roger played with all of them. He played with the what do you call it? The Kentucky Colonels. He played with the Flying Burrito Brothers all the way up through the Gazette. So Roger's kind of been right in there and one of my heroes all the time. So I guess that would be a pretty good band.
Great.
I'd like to put that together right now.
Your dream bluegrass band is Country Gazette.
I think you're right. When you think about it, yes, sir, I think you're right. Yeah,
Very
it was nice because, like I say, I was very young. I was very young into that whole time with the Gazette because these guys were considerably older than I was. So it seemed like I got to experience the relationships with a lot of the really, really good players out there because it seemed like the Gazette drew a lot of players to see what we did, to see what we were doing. One of my favorites now was the Newgrass Revival. They were really coming on strong back when we were coming on strong as the Gazettes, changing the music. When Alan switched over to having a phase shifter on the banjo, that was the first time I'd ever heard that, and we were playing around with that a lot. So it's kind of changing the music and the sound of it. Well, we did a lot of festivals where Newgrass Revival played the same festivals, and somehow it seemed like either we were on before them or they were on before us, and we were there. Well, Newgrass Revival back in those days, their wives traveled with them, and they were their roadies. Two of the Newgrass Revival ladies were the sound people. So whenever we did a festival, their wives did the sound for us too. They'd go take over the sound out there in the sound booth. So it seemed like we were always had a really good sound at these festivals because we had those people doing the sound for us. So that was kind of a nice relationship too, to have to be in the same type of music, the same Newgrass, I guess you could say, that was coming out at the time. Everybody was trying to do something just a little bit different. And it was kind of interesting. We tried to stay traditional as you could because you had the traditional players, but everyone's adding a little bit more, to trying to keep up with the times. But yeah, that would be a good band. I have to think about that band. Got to get them all back together when we get up there in the pearly gates. I think that'd be fun. I think they could probably find a lot better singers than I was, though. I think I could go back to playing strumming guitar probably behind them.
Okay, well, I'm sorry to say this, but we are running out of time. Michael, thank you so much for sharing your incredible stories with us today. It was truly an honor to have you here.
Yes, Michael, really appreciate your informative answers and the time you took, especially at 7 a.m. your time.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to be here, you guys. Thank you guys for what you're doing and memorializing all this music. And without y'all, I'm not sure what would happen with it. So y'all are a big part of what we do. So we appreciate y'all so much. Thank you for inviting me and thinking about me.
You are very welcome. Thank you. And to all of you watching, thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this interview as much as we did.
And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more interviews like this.
Yeah, that's right. And stay tuned for our next episode where we'll be talking with Andy Stockman. Until then, take care and keep the music alive.
Okay, see you next time.
Okie dokie. Bye-bye.
And in all my dreams and memories I go running through the fields of Arkansas from which I sprung. Arkansas.